Hello there. Going through a divorce? Considering one? Sorry to hear that, but here you are. Welcome to Splitsville. You'll find Splitsville to be a pretty unique place. A new world, really, with its own rules, its own expectations, and in many ways, its own language. But don't worry, you have a knowledgeable guide along the way. And now, here she is.
Hi, I'm Lea Finegan, and I'm here today with another Touchstone Family Law attorney, Brione Pattison. And we're here to talk to you today about something that we get a lot of calls about and questions, and that is attorney's fees. And most importantly, how to save on those attorney's fees. So Brione and I have come up with our top 10 list. But before we get started with that, we're going to hear from Brione about attorney's fees.
So every attorney is going to bill for their time. Every attorney has a slightly different hourly rate based on their experience and their knowledge, but each attorney is going to provide you with a bill at some point in time where you're going to see everything that the attorney and their staff has done on your case, and it can add up very quickly. So that's why we're here to talk to you today about ways that you can save money on those attorney's fees and not rack up that bill.
All right, so let's dive in. This is in no particular order, we'll say that, but the number one way to save money is to pick the right attorney. And I know that can be very overwhelming, especially when there's so many out there, but it's really important that you find one that really fits your personality and your goals. So we'll talk a little bit more about number two, which is picking the right way to resolve your case. So my practice is dedicated to settling cases, and I do that with collaborative family law, separation agreements, and mediation, sometimes arbitration. All of the attorneys at our law firm have a goal of settling cases if possible, because going to court can include additional fees. So pick the right attorney, pick the right way to resolve your case. One important thing to remember as far as an attorney goes is that just because they're less expensive does not mean they're going to be cost effective. An example would be that if you hire an attorney that's, say, $200 an hour to draft an agreement, and it takes them 5 hours to do it, and compared to an attorney that charges $400 an hour and it takes them 2 hours to do it, well, you can do the math. So be cognizant of that.
And at the same time, just because an attorney bills at a very high rate does not mean they are the best attorney for you either. You need to find the one that fits right for you, and as Lea said, the type of case that you want to move forward with.
All right, number three. I'll let you take this one, Brione.
It's really important that you read that representation agreement. Your attorney is going to present you with a document called a representation agreement that's going to outline all of the ways that they're going to represent you, as well as your obligations within that lawsuit. And it sets out their hourly rate and their billing fees and how they're going to present bills to you at the end of the month or the end of your representation with them. It's really important that you read that and understand that before you hire your counsel, so you know what they're going to be doing with your money, whether you will get any of it back at any point in time if it's not used, if it's going to reserve their time for you, and at a certain point, it's not going to be returned to you if there's extra money left over. So read that representation agreement thoroughly and know how you're going to have your money spent.
Number four, have a therapist. I have a lot of empathy for my clients. I went through this myself, as did Brione. So we understand that it's in a very emotional time for you and your family, and we want to be there for you. But you don't want to pay us to vent or to help you figure out how to resolve emotional issues. One of the first things I say to my clients is, do you have a therapist? And if you don't, I want you to get one. That can actually really save you money in the long run, because we are going to be empathetic, but we want to focus our time in helping you with your legal issues.
A fifth way to address your attorney's fees is how you communicate with your attorney. First thing to do is listen to your attorney, follow their instructions, because ignoring their advice leads to more issues and more time spent on your case. either retelling you what they need you to do or fixing issues that come up because you didn't follow their instructions. Prepare for calls and meetings with your attorney. Write down your questions or your concerns beforehand and bring a list to your meeting or your phone call with your attorney. So you're sure to touch on every subject that you have questions about and you don't have to make another call to address another issue.
You know, I think a really good way to do that, Brione, is also to batch your questions. And by that, I mean, when you think of something, write it down. Don't send your attorney 10 or 15 emails a day because each of those is going to require their time to open the email, to read it, to respond. I would much rather get one email with a list of 10 questions, and I'm going to respond to every single one of those, but it's going to take me a lot less time. And sometimes those questions end up being very similar and the same answer pertains to it. So I think that's a really good way when you're communicating with your attorney.
Yes. I think it's also important to distinguish between an urgent question and a non-urgent question. You know, if your ex is refusing to return the children, that's an urgent issue. If your ex is 10 minutes late dropping off your children, probably not an urgent issue that you need to reach out to us. Something we will talk about when you send that batch of questions to us, but it's not something that you need to get our time for immediately.
Yeah, and I would say if you have an emergency, pick up the phone, call us, because we want to know and we want to act on that as quickly as possible.
And in your questions, be specific. Instead of saying something like, I'm worried about custody and how that's going to go, tell us what you're specifically concerned about. My ex picked up Jimmy 30 minutes late on Tuesday. He doesn't return my calls. How do I address that?
Yeah, I think that's really important. And of course, one of the biggest things in communicating with your attorney is to tell them everything. You don't need to hide anything from us. We have an attorney-client relationship. It's privileged. We're not going to tell anyone. But we need you to tell us what is going on. It's not helpful or cost-effective for you to hold back.
And we're not here to judge you either.
Absolutely.
It's more important that we know something that you may think is bad in your past so that if it comes up, we can address it beforehand. The last thing we want to do is have somebody sitting on the stand telling us something they think you've done that you've never told us about. And now we don't have the time to even sit down and talk with you about it because we're in the middle of a trial.
Yeah, I will say a lot of times people are really concerned about something. And when they tell us, we're like, it doesn't matter. You know, that's an empty threat. So it is important to speak openly, but be conscious of how much time you're asking your attorney to spend on questions and everything.
I think it's also really important to be prompt. Respond promptly to your attorney. Every time we have to follow up with you, that's time that we have to spend that you get billed for. Be on time for your meetings with your attorneys because we will have set aside time to spend with you that we can't bill to other clients or be doing other work. It's going to be billed to you. So if you're late, you're wasting time with your attorney that you could be using efficiently. So be prompt, be on time, bring your list of questions.
Number 6 is being organized. And I know that this can be a very overwhelming time, and particularly for people that aren't generally organized people. And everybody has their own system, and what may be organized to you may not be organized to another. But we think it's really important for you to keep all of your documents together, or as you gather them, keep them all together. One easy way to start is to do a timeline. So literally start at the beginning. And from that point on, give us dates, times, whatever information you possibly can so that we can see a picture and it makes sense.
Maintain your own digital file is another way to keep yourself organized. We will send you every document that we produce in your case, every pleading, every letter. We're going to send you a copy of that in a digital format. Keep those for your records. Anything that you're getting that you think might be helpful to your case from other parties, make a digital copy of it, save that. The other nice thing about that, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is when you have to produce documents to us, you already have it in a PDF form, which makes it easy for us.
We have a portal system at our office, and I'm sure several other offices have that as well, just like at a doctor's office. It's super helpful because it keeps all the communications in the same place. So if you have a question for us, you might just have to page back in the portal and say, oh, we've already discussed that. It's very effective and time or cost effective.
Another way I think to be organized is to be organized in the way that you communicate with your spouse. If you put multiple issues in an email to your spouse and they're only responding to one, and then you have another email chain over here where you're now discussing some of the issues you discussed in that first email, and now it's in this other email chain, it makes it very hard for you to keep track of what's going on, makes it hard for us to keep track of going on. And if we go to litigation, it makes it really hard for a judge to understand what's going on. So the more you can keep your communications organized, one topic in per email chain, that keeps you organized and makes our job a lot easier in understanding the situation and the issues and ways to address them.
Definitely. Number 7 is discovery. And that's something that may or may not pertain to your case, depending on the pathway that you've chosen or that you have to follow. But discovery is subpoenas, requests for productions of documents, interrogatories, which are questions that you're asked to answer. And this is, again, a really big part of being organized. So when we request documents, if you can collect them yourself and in full PDF formats and save them to that digital file, it makes it much more cost effective.
Absolutely. And even if you don't want your case to go to litigation and go before a judge, you want to use mediation or arbitration or the collaborative process, family law cases are very document heavy. We need financial documents, bank statements, credit card statements, investment account statements. When it comes to children, medical records, all kinds of things that can come up depending on your situation. Everybody's family is different, but I can't think of a family law case that doesn't involve a lot of documents. And so, whether it's digital or a paper copy, we're going to need to see those. And the longer you've been separated, probably the more documents there are going to be. But when you can produce them in the format that your attorney asks for, and this goes back to listening to their instructions, then you're creating less work for your attorney to put all these documents together. Provide documentation that is actually requested. Don't send just the first page of a bank statement. You're going to need the whole bank statement. Provide things in a PDF. When you send JPEGs to us, we have to spend the time to turn it into a PDF that can be usable for us and readable for us. That takes time. That means your attorney's fees. And provide it when your attorney asks for it. This goes back to being prompt with your attorney. The more times we have to ask for a document, you only send us one page. Please send us the rest of the document. Again, that takes our time or our paralegal's time, and that is your attorney's fees being spent.
So number 8 might surprise some people, but that's doing some of the legwork yourself. And there are things that you can do. For instance, if we ask you to make a list of all the marital assets that you can think of and debts, that helps us get started. And then you can follow up with gathering the information surrounding them in the documents. You can research property values. You can figure out the Kelley Blue Book value of your car. Things like that you can do. And it's very helpful in the process and saves you money. Conversely, and I'll let Brione talk to this, there's a couple things we do not want you to do.
Don't do something if your attorney hasn't asked you to do it. And if you have any question about it, ask your attorney first. Do not sign any document without first talking to your attorney, especially something that looks like a legal document, because you may be signing away rights or information that you didn't mean to do. And don't file anything with the court without legal guidance from your attorney as well. Don't talk to court personnel unless your attorney advises you to do so. I think those are probably the 3 biggest things I can think of to advise clients not to do, but to rely on your attorney to help you through or take care of for you.
Number 9, alternative dispute resolution. So that's a big phrase, to cover things that mean staying out of court. So again, my practice is dedicated to settlement, so I'm a big fan of these alternatives. The first one is collaborative family law. I've done a podcast on that you can listen to. We also often incorporate mediation. In some matters, even those that go to court, it's required, which is a good thing because oftentimes you can settle matters and not keep going through the court process. We also use arbitration. I've seen that being used more and more because it's a quicker way to get a solution. You still go in front of a person or an attorney that acts like a judge, but you don't have to wait as long to get in the courtroom. So all of those are ways that you can save money ultimately.
And the last one I would suggest is to review your legal bills. Make sure that you ask questions if you don't understand something that's been put on your legal bill. Understand that we make mistakes. In our firm, we're pretty good about giving you detailed descriptions of the work that we are doing on your case, on your legal bill, so you know what we are doing for you. But we're also human, and sometimes we make mistakes in what we put on there. One time I accidentally put that I worked 30 hours on a case instead of 3. That makes a big difference on a legal bill. So, it's important that you look at those and make sure the things that your attorney is putting on your bill are things they've actually done for you. Or if you don't understand what they've done, talk to them. At our firm, we don't charge you to talk to us about your bill. We would rather you bring it to our attention, talk to us about it, talk to us sooner rather than later, and so we can resolve any questions or concerns that you have. But do review those legal bills and do it sooner rather than later, because the longer you wait, the harder it is for your attorney to, remember, oh yes, I really did do that this day, or I didn't do that, or understanding what actually went on in your case so that we can address those concerns with you.
Yeah, and we're not offended at all by questions about your bill, so don't hesitate. One other little tidbit on that is we often use our support staff to do certain things like scan documents or organize and help us with putting your case together. That saves you money because we're not the ones doing it. But again, if you do it yourself, then that step won't necessarily be required. Those are the top 10.
Exactly. And I just remember that spending money on good legal advice upfront can save you much more in the long run. Don't try to handle complex family law matters yourself, or at least without legal consultation. And we're not saying that just because we're attorneys, but because we really do believe that the legal system is hard for a layperson to maneuver through, and having good counsel and good advice is going to help you in the long run to save money on attorney's fees, save money by not giving up rights to assets that you may have, or any other kinds of issues that might arise in the legal field. Having good counsel is worth it.
Yeah, and I would also mention that if you try to do something in court by yourself, oftentimes it becomes a mess. And we have a lot of people come to us after they've tried to do it on their own, and that ends up costing them more than it would have been if they came to us in the first place. So I want you to leave today knowing that your story does not have to be about excessive and a lot of attorney's fees, especially if you take control and you work with your attorney as a partner. So thank you for being with us today. Brione and I feel privileged to be able to talk to you about how you can save money. We're always working closely with our clients to achieve their goals in the most cost-effective manner that we can. So if you're interested in talking to us further about our representation, about what sort of way that you can resolve your case in the most cost-effective manner, then please reach out. We look forward to speaking with you.
So there you have it, another neighborhood of Splitsville explored. There's still so much to learn here, so I hope you'll tune in to the next episode. While Splitsville is not a fun place to be, thankfully it is full of helpful people, valuable resources, and sound advice, if you know where to look. See you next time.
The insights and views presented in Welcome to Splitsville are for general information purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice for any individual case or situation. Nor does tuning into this podcast constitute an attorney-client relationship of any kind. If you're ready for compassionate and reliable legal guidance on your journey, contact Lee Sellers and her team at www.touchstonefamilylaw.com.